I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would note that all members of the Board of Trustees, including our student trustee, are present for this second Zoom meeting. I want to welcome everybody to our second Zoom meeting, and just like to say that a lot has happened since our last meeting, which was a special meeting held on, it was March 2023. Since that time, a lot has gone on nationally and locally. I would note that it seems like a lifetime ago when all this started, but it was only March 15, less than a month ago, that Dr. Goswami announced that we were suspending operations on campus. And it was March 19 that our governor issued a statement or issued an order, a stay-at-home order for the entire state. And I would note that since that time, although conditions have worsened nationally, I would say locally and in the state are a hopeful sign. Our early stay-at-home act has led to a much lower numbers than we see elsewhere. And I would again note that it has been remarkable that over the last month, the college has, from the administration to the faculty to the staff and to the students, have achieved remarkable success in moving towards online instruction and continuing their education at Santa Barbara College. We have next on our agenda recognitions, we have one recognition. Jordan Morris, who has 10 years as a senior research data warehouse specialist. And Z Rise, I believe, will make a presentation. I believe Jordan is also on with us.
Thank you, President and trustees, for having us here to recognize Jordan's 10-year anniversary with Santa Barbara City College. I've had the privilege of working with Jordan for 4 of his 10 years, and I have it on good authority that my 4 years is an ample sample to show kind of what his work has been for this college over his entire 10 years. He has been an incredible asset to both our department and to the college in providing a lot of the services that go on in the background that keep our college's data running and keep us in compliance with all of our bigger, with the Chancellor's office and with the federal government as well. And just kind of sample of some of the things that he does to keep our college going. He almost single-handedly manages our uploads to the Management Information System, which is MIS. And that comes off way too easily and sounds way too easy. So let me say a little bit about what this entails. So this requires him to do 6 uploads throughout the year. Each upload has 3 to 15 required data sets. Overall, this requires an understanding of more than 209 data elements. So it is a massive undertaking that Jordan does almost single-handedly and has kept this going for year after year. And we see the MIS data used in everything from the student-centered funding formula with the success and supplemental allocations, as well as the student success metrics, the scorecard that we used to present when that was still a thing, as well as numerous other statewide evaluations and reports. So it's really a pivotal point of us providing information out to our chancellor's office and the system at large to kind of show how our college is doing, as well as being used in the multiple measures assessment when we moved into the AB 705 world and a number of other things. So it's just one of the kind of most important uploads of information that we do externally. And he has managed that for pretty much 10 years and has done a stellar job on it year after year, taking and tackling all of the intricacies that does entail. He also helps us submit our attendance apportionment report, better known as the CCFS 320 report. This is the report that determines 70% of our revenue. And he works avidly to make sure that we go through, we evaluate all of our information before we upload it, and has done a stellar job on that as well. He also oversees the federal data set that we provide to the U.S. Department of Education, the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, better known as IPEDS. It's one of our federal mandated, and it is nationally probably our most visible self to the U.S. So a very important data set in which Jordan works to make sure that our information up there represents our college. In his free time, he also manages our research data warehouse. So all of the data sets that we share out for program review to faculty and departments when they're trying to find data to make decisions, and they need that information to determine what the best information is, or what the best decision is to go forward. Jordan helps us keep our research data warehouse nice and tidy so that we can have confidence when we are reporting those numbers. He also oversees a few other programs, and then he also handles a bundle of ad hoc projects and data requests. So it is really with great pleasure that I am here today to recognize Jordan's 10-year anniversary at SBCC, and I look forward to working with him for many more years, and I'm very grateful to have him as a member of our team at SBCC.
Oh, excellent. I was going to say we don't have the opportunity to present the certificate, but there it is.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Z.
And Jordan, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, let me thank you for your great service to the college. Sometimes those we recognize wish to say a few things. You're not required to, but if you'd like to, this would be your opportunity.
I'd just like to say thank you. It's been a pleasure working with everyone. Thank you, Z, for your kind words, and I look forward to another 10 years.
Terrific. Terrific.
Thanks a lot.
I neglected to tell trustees one procedural item before we started. We're going to use the raise hand feature for Zoom. And how it works is if you click on the participant at the bottom of your screen, you will see a list of participants, and at the bottom of that screen, there's a tab on the left that says raise hand. So when you want to make a comment or ask a question, click the raise hand. It will go to the top. And I should see that, and then can call on you. Any questions about that? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 3.2, resolution concerning classified school employee week. And I'll ask Dr. Goswami if he would like to make a comment on this.
It is a motion, it's a recommended action to approve that resolution so that we can recognize the work that the classified employee do for our institution. So it comes from the administration for approval.
And the resolution was attached to the notice. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I move to approve resolution number 10, recognizing classified school employee week.
Second.
And Trustee Hazel, I see your hand raised. You have a second? Cannot hear you.
Unmute, Peter.
Peter, need to, you're muted. There you go.
Well, I didn't say anything because I heard you loud and clear that we're going to use the raised hand thing to catch your attention, but The other part of it is you've got to look at that thing.
Well, Veronica spoke before I saw it, so
I saw it. Yes,
my eyes.
I bow to Veronica.
Okay, so we have a second.
Yes.
Resolution, I gather we have a roll call vote, but first ask if there's any comments or questions about the resolution.
Yes. Oh, oops,
Okay.
I forgot. Here, there's my hand. My question is, who wrote the resolution?
It's a template we have. If
Okay.
anybody in the future wants to write it, that's fine.
No. I think it's a good resolution, and I just
Oh.
want us to be sure that it has meaning for those people who
Sure,
it is intended to honor,
right,
not just another thing.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other
you-
comments?
No.
Questions? If not, I'd ask Angie to take a roll of the vote.
Okay, student trustee Gretchen,
Aye.
trustee Carninger,
Aye.
trustee Parker,
Aye.
trustee Abud,
Aye.
trustee Miller,
Aye.
trustee Gallardo,
Aye.
trustee Nielsen,
He's muted.
he's not, trustee Nielsen,
You need to unmute, Craig.
Well,
I show that he is.
There we go.
oh, I see. Mute me.
Okay.
Raise your hand. Say aye.
All right,
I shouldn't be muted. I don't understand.
Now, we hear you now.
Okay. Well, I didn't change a thing in it.
And you-
trustee Haslam,
Aye.
thank you.
It sounds like we have the vote completed and
Yes.
there's a unanimous vote in favor of the resolution.
Yes.
Okay. We now move to public comments, and we received no requests for public comments for the meeting.
Correct.
We will move on to item 5.1, minutes of the February 27 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move to approve the minutes.
Do I hear a second? Trustee
Second.
Gallardo.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. We next move to item 6.1 for reports, and our first report will be from the Academic Senate, Patricia Stark.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I can.
Yes.
I need my screen. I need my presentation.
I saw it and then it went away. There it is.
There it is. Okay, and guys and folks, the way this is going to work is that I'm going to tell either Oren or Clive when it's time to switch slides because I'm not driving my own presentation today. So bear with me if that doesn't go particularly well. Okay, so let's see. Okay, great. So later in this meeting, Dr. Ralston has provided you guys with a report that's showing all of the different things we have had to deal with in educational programs in order to deal with myriad different challenges presented by this coronavirus pandemic emergency. Today, what I want to do is focus on one part of that, on two things that fall specifically within faculty purview, and that is curriculum and professional development. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And all of the actions that we've taken are focused around trying to provide a schedule of classes that has academic integrity in terms of the amounts of the courses we're offering, but that also offers our students what they need in order to transfer. The focus today will be on those teachers for summer 1 and summer 2. Okay, now I'm ready for the first slide. So the challenge that we have had is we are moving all of our courses online, and we did this in the spring, and you've probably already heard, we've got 97% of our courses online for spring. But honestly, this was done very rushed. We have faculty who are doing all manner of things in order to get themselves in a position where they can do this. We're putting enormous strain on the Faculty Resource Center. And it's a little bit of the Wild West out there. And I don't in any way mean to diminish what faculty's doing, but the urgency of what happened this spring really did not allow us to ensure any type of quality in what we're doing. It's everybody doing their best, and we're hoping for the best. So on March 31st, the Chancellor's Office came out with a new directive. Basically, it extended the waiver for our curriculum processes through the entirety of the pandemic. They extended it to March till December 31st. And they told us that we had to come up with new curricular processes that were responsive to moving our classes into a remote environment. So that left us some flexibility on what we needed to do, but it definitely said you need to do something. So after we got that memo, I pulled together a group of faculty leaders, and we started working on what could be a rapid response to this new environment. So our goals throughout this was to make sure that we offer a schedule of classes, an instructional program that had academic integrity, that we faculty were engaging in our purview to drive course quality. Student success, as always, was paramount. And we also have a whole laundry list of local requirements that we have to do in order to offer quality distance ed training. So we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with our own local policies and procedures. New slide, please. And this is just a summary of what the infamous Chancellor's Office memo ES20. Again, you can see the date of what we were trying to deal with. So again, working quickly, trying to do something, trying to adapt, not overwhelming faculty, but still providing them with the resources. We did an early, Pamela's office did an early study on our first summer schedule, the summer schedule as we had originally planned on offering it. And while the numbers are not entirely accurate, we saw that something like 50 to 60% of the instructors who were scheduled to teach in the summer did not have the college required training to teach distance ed courses. This was a problem that we felt that we needed to create a real fast solution to. Next slide, please. So what we did is first we looked at curriculum, and the curriculum process, I don't think anybody could ever accuse us of having an easy curriculum process at Santa Barbara City College. So we looked first at how can we possibly streamline it so that we can have chairs and the faculty who are teaching this class turn in all of the required documentation in order to be able to take the class online, but to provide, make the documents simpler, make the process simpler. And we actually have done all of that. Instead of going through this really onerous process, we're working with some Google tools. We're having people just file things in a folder rather than having to go through this whole process. So that in and of itself should create a much more faculty-friendly process for filing these required documents. We also created a curriculum task force that's going to start work right away. And this task force is sort of a, an immediate response team that will be able to help instructors schedule it for these classes to actually complete these documents. And I'm happy and thankful to say that I reached out to Dr. Goswami for some funding to be able to pay our faculty members who are on our curriculum advisory committee to work over the summer. And he gave us that, he granted that request. So we can have this very important committee continue its work through the summer, because we've got many, many courses to process here. And I guess it can be assumed, but I think I really need to say that the whole purpose of this is that when we take a class online and we offer it to students in a distance ed format, that the curriculum is designed and customized to be successful and effective in a distance ed format. It's very, very different than teaching a face-to-face class, and that's got to be recorded in all of the course of record outlines. New slide, please. The other thing that we wanted to do is provide faculty, particularly those faculty members who are teaching in summer one, with some really targeted, specific training so that they can learn exactly what they need to do in order to be able to teach this summer. So our Faculty Resource Center, you've heard people singing their praises repeatedly, and I will echo that as well. They coordinated with us to develop a 5-week session. The first one starts next week. We're actually asking people to register for it by tomorrow. These sessions will continue on through the summer. They will focus on 3 components: best practices in teaching online and course development, infusing equity, accessibility, and social-emotional pedagogy in all distance education materials. This is actually a gap that we feel we've had in the past. So we're trying to not only create an expedited process, but an expedited process that brings, if you will, some value added to it so that we can address some things that we needed to address in the past. And then finally, the task force will just help people fill out the paperwork, which can be really onerous. Next slide, please. This is very exciting because we were able to identify that we want to have our distance education really hardwired with those types of pedagogy that will help disproportionately impacted groups. Our Title III faculty director, Dr. Elizabeth Imhoff, identified a way that we can actually use Title III grant funding to pay for the training that we're offering this summer. So we're going to be working this out, meeting with the FA tomorrow to work out details, but we think that we can actually pay our faculty with grant money to complete this training this summer. And we're also still exploring a way to use the grant funding to pay for this task force that's going to be putting in a lot of hours this summer as well to keep all of this moving. Next slide, please. I just really have to give a nod out to the people who worked on this group. We have put in so many hours in Zoom meetings, but you can see a representative from the Curriculum Advisory Committee, our faculty leads on professional development, on accessibility. David Wong, who I think should be canonized as a saint when this is all over, from the Faculty Resource Center. Dr. Ralston provided some valuable resource, and I just basically tried to put the pieces of the puzzle together and get it through the governance structure in what has to be a record short amount of time. And then next slide, which is not going to make you happy. We don't have a clue what we're doing for fall. That'll be the next big step. But right now, what we've been doing is just focusing on infusing the system with shortcuts for curriculum and the best training that we can offer to protect and secure our summer 1 and 2 programs.
Tricia, thank you very much for your report. Again, I know that we are all extremely impressed with how far and how much has been accomplished in such a short amount of time under not the easiest circumstances. So I'll ask, I see we have a couple raised hands, starting with Trustee Gallardo.
Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate your commitment to quality and really making a distinction. I read an article this week from one of the higher ed blogs or groups that I joined just to for me to stay on top of as close to what you guys are going through when we're meeting and hearing information. And they really made the distinction between, I think what you're saying is emergency remote teaching versus online learning. And we have successful online learning programs at City College. And for you guys to really be working to continue that caliber that we have at San City College is huge. And so I want to say thank you. And that's amazing. And the fact that you guys work with the committee to look at the grant funding we have in the long run, even though this came out of like trying to do this for online, I believe it's going to elevate teaching capacity collectively for the faculty. So I want to say thank you and fully supportive of you guys using those dollars to elevate teaching and learning.
Robert, you're muted.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Croninger.
Well, I certainly want to say thank you to Patricia and all the faculty and classified. I know everyone has really jumped in and put in a tremendous effort to make this transition work. Your last slide was one of the things I wanted to ask about, and I know you said we don't know. My concern is that it will be easier to think it through and maybe get it started if we're online in fall to do that training that might be needed before we come up against the fall semester starting. And in connection with that, and what got me thinking about it particularly was the recent report of the National Academy of Sciences, which said that we should not count on the virus lessening during summer, and noted that influenza pandemics during the past 250 years started at different times of the year and had second waves about 6 months after the first, regardless of season. And 6 months would be fall. So that's what's making me think about this.
I was being a little bit coy with my last slide. There's a few other things. One is that we are prioritizing our summer faculty in these workshops. We are still sorting out what's the maximum number. Registration for the first one is tomorrow. If we can accommodate fall faculty, we will. I, for one, will be at the front of the line. This is actually my last presentation to you as Academic Senate President. On May 9th, I will go back to being a department chair, and I will have the very interesting challenge of trying to run a student newspaper remotely. I need all the help I can get as soon as I can get it in order to get the training that I need. So there is that. There's also, we also allow other mechanisms for training. One, for example, is the @ONE professional development and certificate that's done through the Chancellor's office. Quite rigorous. Actually way more time involved than our FRC training. So that's one avenue. We also have in 4105, our distance ed procedure, that we have a mentoring program where a new faculty member can be mentored by a experienced online teacher. The new faculty member agrees to use the mentor's material, and they spend an entire year working together hand in hand. That is another option. And we created a third emergency measure, and I am stressing that this is emergency, where we will allow faculty who've had a little bit training here and a little bit training there, and maybe some training at another college. We're allowing them to cobble that together, document it, and submit it to their department chair and their deans to see if that would help satisfy, if that would satisfy our training. So we're with that. So the summer training at the FRC is really meant to be the quick, expedited, really focused, but we have provided other avenues for other faculty to get this training, at the same time trying to ensure that it has some degree of rigor to it.
Thank you. And thank you also, since you mentioned this is your last report, for your years of service to us with the Senate. It's morphed into a job I think you probably never could have anticipated.
Yeah, I was a cub reporter back in the 90s at a newspaper, and I always thought that was a fairly brutalizing experience. experience, but this has been the wildest ride I've ever had. It's been an honor and privilege. I'll have next meeting, I'll make some kind of statement, but yeah, it's what a way to end it too. My goodness.
Exclamation point.
Trustee Hasland, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for your report, especially the final comment with which or about which you said maybe we wouldn't be happy. I'm happy because nobody else knows either, and that at least makes us entirely consistent. Also, my compliments to the faculty, and I've always felt that our faculty were the most creative people on the planet, and I fully anticipate that they will turn that creativity to work on behalf of students during this very difficult period, where those who are familiar with how to do it in a classroom are going to have to become familiar with how to communicate across an electronic barrier, and this is an electronic barrier. So my hats off to everybody who is going to be in this mix, and please assure the faculty that this Board of Trustees is supportive and very appreciative of everything they do.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you very much for that vote of confidence. I'm trying really hard to view this as an exciting opportunity and trying to share that spirit with other people as well.
But I do disagree with your final comment. You're not going back to the classroom. You're getting a promotion to go to the classroom. And I speak with experience because I had that opportunity as well. And it is an exciting thing. The classroom is where good teachers belong.
Okay, thank you, Patricia. Thank you for the comments. I don't see any other hands raised, so
I
we
think
will.
Kate,
I think you've forgotten me there.
There it is.
yes.
Thank you.
I'll chime in with a thanks, Patricia. It's just been amazing to see everybody in action, both the spring term and then to see what you're pulling together for professional development for the summer. I had a quick question. I know that students got the message that there are a number of summer courses that are currently closed for registration that might open. And I don't know if you can talk about that at all, about what is going on in the thought process and decision making around that.
Yes, the Curriculum Advisory Committee, which is the group, our faculty group, which has primacy over curriculum, they signed off on this on Monday. The academics signed off on it yesterday. I sent an email out last night, and all day long I've been flooded with emails from adjunct faculty who had been removed from the class because they didn't have the right training or experience. Our hope is that they all get added back in and we can reopen these sections. I mean, you've really just, you put your finger on exactly the problem that we needed to try to fix. And that is our schedule shrunk considerably until we got this blanket waiver and we could figure out a way forward. So my hope is that, this is sort of a sequential thing and you're getting this news hot off the press, but as this settles in a bit, that we will be bringing in the faculty who were originally scheduled and reopening these sections. And, let me just say one more thing. Trustee Gallardo, I think, also said something really pivotal, and that is there is a significant difference between correspondence courses or remote education and distance ed. And I probably should have opened my statement with that. And what we were trying for is the latter, true quality distance ed, and not just shoving something out there in a remote environment. But with any luck, within the next week, I would hope, and Dr. Ralston can probably speak to this more specifically, I would hope we start seeing those sections open up as fast as we can do it.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Patricia? Not seeing any, we'll move on to reports. I think from Dr. Goswami, I don't see that Alexandra Montes de Oca or Liz Oschenklotz are on with us, so I'm assuming we do not have reports from the Associated Students or classified employees.
Yes.
So we'll move to Dr. Goswami.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So I will start by saying that I have been extremely impressed with the way the college community has come together in response to the emergency situation we have. And so this is the Santa Barbara City College that I thought I was coming to. And I'm seeing it play out because people are taking the lead, taking the initiative in making things happen. And so, so nobody is waiting for me to approve something. They're going ahead and doing it. And I'm really liking that, how people are approaching that. So though that's kind of a, approach has led to a number of great accomplishments that I would like to kind of share with the board. So you already heard that now we have moved 97% of our courses to the format. That is an amazing number for this institution, for any institution. But we also took care of our students in terms of those students who did not have the right technology or did not have access to internet. So we have distributed over 450 Chromebooks, and we have another 400 or 500 Chromebooks left that we can distribute to students over summer. We've acquired a huge number of hotspots. So the students who don't have access to internet, they can apply and get hotspots. And so nobody has been denied access to education because either they don't have a computer or because of the internet. So we have been able to meet every need that a student has come forward with. Now, one of the things that we recently announced to our students was the ability to ask for excuse withdrawal. And that's a withdrawal process that does not affect the GPA of the student or their eligibility for financial aid. So what my advice to students have been that you have the option to do an excuse withdrawal even at the very end. So go through your course as much as you can, even though you might find it difficult sometimes, and see how you end up doing, and then determine whether you want to withdraw the course. Because otherwise it will be very easy to withdraw right now and not knowing that you might learn, or you might begin to develop some skills to be able to complete the course towards the end of the semester in a better way. We have also participated on a number did a couple of food distribution drives. The last one was yesterday, and I had the opportunity to volunteer in doing that. And we had 350 prepackaged bags, each bag about 5, 6 pounds. We were going to distribute it at 2:30, and we had students lining up in their cars at 1:30. And we were able, we were done with distributing the 350 packages in about 90 minutes. So there is again a great need that we have seen that that our community has stepped up to do that. Finally, I'm going to brag a little bit about our foundation because they initiated the emergency grant process. And this, I can say that no other community college in the nation probably has done this. We have processed close to 1,600 grants, average amount being about $875 each. So you can do the math, multiply 875 by 1,600, you'll come to a figure close to about $1.4 million. So I am absolutely confident no other community college foundation in the nation has done that in response to this emergency for their students. So my thanks go out to the foundation and the folks who have contributed to the foundation over the years and continue to do so right now. So that, I think, and I'll conclude with I'll give Dr. Elston a few minutes to talk about some of the additional things that's happening in terms of the supporting students. But Luz recently shared the news release that we have been also named #1 community college in the country. And so I want to share that news with the board also, that because of the good work that everybody does. And as you can see from Patricia's report, we sometimes don't take the easy way out of in our curriculum processes. Even under difficult circumstances, we do insist that certain standards are being met. And because of this commitment to quality that we have, we continue to always get high marks from others who look at us as an exemplary institution. So Pamela, you want to add a little bit?
Sure. Between Dr. Goswami and Patricia, most of the big picture pieces have been covered. What faculty have been able to do is really astounding. And Patricia talked a lot about the instructional faculty and the work that they'll be doing to convert the curriculum. But our non-instructional faculty have really stepped up as well. So folks in the library, folks who support tutoring, and then our folks in counseling have all redesigned how they support students to make sure that nobody goes unseen or unheard. And so we've had some really interesting improvement processes happen. So once we make it through this time period, we'll be a lot more useful for adult students who are returning to be able to work with us. Financial aid and admissions and records have moved the last pieces of old paper processes into online processes. That'll stay with us. Our recruitment and outreach components have turned into modular online components that'll be working for us as we go into the future. So every single office in ed programs has stepped up and outperformed. Deans have done amazing work, directors, managers, staff, all the way across the board. We're tutoring online in ways that we never thought possible. I got a note out today about the work we'll be doing for the drop-in math lab. So everything that could be converted has been converted. And that 97% that we talk about for classes that were able to make that transition halfway through spring, we're still navigating some of the most difficult to convert. And so we'll be working through whether or not students need an incomplete in those, and then we'll provide the last remaining components of those kinds of courses once we can be safely back together again. So we've done some really amazing work responding to this, including things that you would never think were possible to put online. So the auto technology department to our nursing components, we've been working with accreditors all across the board, some really amazing stuff. And then some back end pieces, we got to hear about the work that Jordan does for us with the management information system. So the Chancellor's Office wanted us to preserve all the back-end data for any semester that's coming through this process. So we had to figure out how to manage, making it look like we had a face-to-face schedule, present it to our students in a way that they would understand remote instruction, and preserve the capacity for faculty to teach synchronously, live in time with students, or asynchronously at some time that worked better for students. And during this crisis, we've done some initial research that says this kind of interaction is going to be more meaningful for students to have this level of engagement in ways that they might not have if they were picking a distance education program. So we're preserving the capacity for faculty to make some conscious choices about how they'll interact with students as they finish this term out and as they move into the summer, and most likely the beginning at least of fall semester. So when Patricia says we don't yet know about fall, it's in part because we're just treading gracefully into that next kind of shocking moment, but we've got a plan C ready for what it'll look like as we start to roll through those component parts. So everyone is working 24/7, and our greatest worry is that people might burn themselves out, but at least they're at home. They might have pets with them. We're hoping that everybody's kind of staying together and doing all right. Faculty and staff have been really engaged and participative and kind during what's been a really difficult time period. And so I think our institution is managing this with as much grace as anybody could imagine.
So Pamela and Dr. Goswami, Thank you very much. It seems like this college really shines in times of emergencies, and we're really proving that again right now.
I think that's absolutely true. And I appreciate when Trustee Haslam referenced how innovative and creative our faculty and staff can be. That's really played out across the board for the last month.
And Trustee Haslam, speaking of you, you had your hand raised.
Well, that's really good to hear. I mean, my comment was aspirational, and it's nice to hear that that's actually happening. I had a question for Dr. Goswami. Do we have data about attendance? I know that we've moved 97% of our courses in the right direction, but there was an article in the New York Times the other day that said that students were reluctant to participate. Do we have any information about how our students are doing?
I don't have the data, but individual faculty members, they get to see, what kind of participation they're having in their classrooms and things of that nature. So over the years, I have kind of developed a kind of a, antenna, kind of, that if I hear something, that means it's about more than 10 people are doing something. But the fact is, I have not heard any kind of murmur that that is becoming a big problem. So I'm sure there is a problem. There are some students who are not attending, and we will find out when we do our final grading. At that point, we can tabulate who the students were in census date, and then so we will do that kind of research at some point in time. Right now we're just spending time, just building the ship, so to speak.
Also, I wanted to comment on your reference to our amazing foundation. I mean, that is so good to hear. It is unprecedented that our foundation would reach out to our students in such a meaningful way, and foundation members are to be hugged virtually because of what they have done for our students.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Goswami or Dr. Ross? Seeing no hands raised, we will move on to agenda item 7. Hold on a second. I lost to agenda item 7.1, the SBCC Community Perception Survey presentation. Just note as an introduction that in the fall of 2019, we contacted with True North Research to conduct a community perception survey. And I believe Timothy McLarney, president of True North, is with us today to make a presentation.
Good evening, good evening. It's Dr. Tim McLarney with True North here. I'll just to say up until about a month ago, I'd never done board meetings via Zoom, although I often wish for virtual board meetings at times due to travel and other things, and I'm getting a crash course in it now. So tonight's PowerPoint presentation covers the highlights of the survey that you just referenced. There is a much more detailed report I understand was provided to the board with a lot more detail than we could share here tonight. And so for those of you who are interested in digging into the details, that document does exist. But tonight we're just going to kind of do a high level overview of the survey findings. And as I go through this presentation, I welcome your questions as I go or at the end, whichever is your preference. So there is the survey, perfect timing. So if we can go to slide number 2. Before we talk about some of the results of the survey, as well as the, before we talk about some of the results of the survey, we want to take a moment just to review the purpose of the study, or why we went about doing this research, as well as the methodology, or how we went about conducting this study. In terms of the purpose, we see this study as really an opportunity to explore community awareness and familiarity and perceptions with college. So, to what extent are residents aware of Santa Barbara City College and familiar with the institution? I will point out that because of that being one of the research objectives, when we invited individuals to participate in the study, we didn't tip our hand about who it's coming from, right? This came out on True North's letterhead, so to speak, not the colleges, because we didn't want to create a bias in favor of people who were already to some degree familiar with the City College. So we're getting a pure read there. We got an opportunity to explore what are their impressions of City College and their opinions of the institution. So how favorable are their impressions of the college? What are some of the things that are good that come to mind when they think of City College? What are some of the challenges they might consider? It was also an opportunity to kind of reach out to the community and ask them what their expectations are of City College and how well the college is meeting those expectations, as we'll see in a couple slides. And then finally, there's been some topics of discussion recently, as well as in the last couple of years or so, that we saw this survey as an opportunity to dive into, right? They've been hot topics at board meetings, for example. And so we took an opportunity to profile community attitudes and perceptions on some of these salient issues. Next slide, please. In terms of the methodology of the slide, of the study, this was a survey that we conducted earlier this year in February to early March. So it was before the COVID breakout and all the chaos that has subsequently ensued. We structured this sample in what's called a stratified random sample. So we start out at a geographic basis. We choose individuals based on their households and how those are distributed within your service area. We wound up speaking with 728 adults who reside within the community college district. We had contracted to do 600, but we came back with 728 because we like to under promise and over deliver. We were a little conservative in what we thought the participation rate was going to be. And because we were a little conservative in that, we were able to over deliver in terms of completed interviews. We layered this sample to appropriately balance voters and non-voter households. That was one of the interests of the team that was working on the study, to be able to look at both of those different subgroups. So we layered it that way. But ultimately, when we structured the sample and then waited at the end to match the profile of the community, we matched that to census ACS age profile at the zip code level, right? So you can see that when you break into the data, and you can see by age profiles, that age profile in fact matches the ACS at the zip code level for the college district. We use what's called a mixed method approach for conducting the study, and what that means is, in addition to telephone recruiting and telephone surveys, we also recruited via email and allowed individuals to participate online at a password protected website. This was not a survey that was open to anybody who could come take the study if they were interested. You had to have received an email invitation from us. There was a link in that email they had to click to get into the system. Embedded in each one of those links was a unique ID, and that allowed us to protect the site so that only individuals that we invited to participate could do so. They could do so one time. They couldn't forward it to their 100 best friends and invite them to take the survey too. So that's what allowed us to protect the integrity of the study and the sample design, and also conducted in English and Spanish. Now, because this was a random sample of 728 adults and not a census of all adults in the district, it has what's known as a margin of error due to sampling. And in this case, it's 3.6%. What that means is we can be 95% confident that the results we'll share and talk about tonight are within 3.6% of what we would have found had we spoken with all of your adult residents. Next slide, please. So on to the results. This first slide has a couple pie charts on it, and because they're both kind of related. We were wanting to understand, first of all, on the left-hand side, how aware the community is of SBCC. And the unaided pie part of that pie, that dark green slice of the pie, was where we asked individuals to tell us, when they think of community colleges and universities in their area, what names come to mind, right? So we weren't telling them, we weren't naming Santa Barbara City College or any other institution. We were just asking them which institutions come to mind when they think of community colleges and universities in their area. And what you see is 89%, right? Almost 9 out of 10 respondents named City College without prompting, right? That's called unaided recall. That is very high. If somebody happened to not name SBCC in that first question, we went on to ask if they had ever heard of SBCC, and you found that 99% of the people we spoke with had heard of SBCC. It's worth noting that on that first question, when I asked, what names of community colleges and universities come to mind, Santa Barbara City College was actually a bit higher than UCSB, right? So that gives you a sense of the level of awareness in the community of City College. On the right-hand side, we went on for those 99% of folks who had said that they had heard of SBCC in the past. We asked them to tell us how familiar they were with City College. And you can see that you also, not just did you have a high level of awareness, you have a really high percentage of folks who said that they're at least somewhat familiar with SBCC. More than 3/4 of the respondents indicated that way. So that's great. Next slide, please. So among those who were at least slightly familiar with City College, we also asked them and transitioned into asking them how favorable or unfavorable their opinion is of City College. And you can see that you had about 12% of respondents who said they were not sure, right? That's that gray slice. So they'd heard of City College before, but they didn't know enough about you to be able to say whether they had a favorable or unfavorable opinion. That is actually a very low percentage for a community college district, right? There's a lot of people who may have heard of a college, but really just have no connection in any way to be able to venture an opinion on this question. So to only have 12% that are gray was striking. The other thing that's obvious when you look at the pie is that favorable impressions and opinions of City College outnumber unfavorable opinions by a large margin. In fact, the ratio is 15-1. So for every one respondent who had an unfavorable impression of SBCC, you had 15 respondents who had a favorable impression. It's also worth pointing out, you don't see it here on the slide, but if you get into the report itself, we show how all these results break down across various subgroups of your residents. And the favorable impressions of City College were widespread across all of the different subgroups we looked at. There wasn't a single subgroup that had less than 85% of those with an opinion saying that they had a favorable opinion of SBCC. Next slide, please. So I mentioned at the outset that the survey was an opportunity to look at what community expectations are of City College. A community college can be a lot of things, and it can be different things to different people. And so for each of the items you see on the left side of that slide, we simply ask them to tell us, how important or how much of a priority would they place on this standard for Santa Barbara City College. Should it be a high priority, a medium priority, that's the two blue bars, or a low priority or not a priority, that's the negative space that's off to the right. These were asked in a random order, but we sorted them from high to low here based on that combined percentage of folks who said it was either a high priority or a medium priority. And what we found, not surprisingly, is things that focus on the core academic mission of the college, as well as integration, sort of rose to the top of the list of the standards that they'd like City College to meet. So providing a challenging, high quality education, teaching students the real world skills they need to succeed in careers, preparing students to transfer for 4 university, et cetera. Those tend to go to the top of the list. At the bottom of the list, you see some things, some other items like providing the public with use of campus facilities and amenities, less of a priority when you stack it up against some of these other items. But it just gives you a sense of what the community's expectations are of City College. Next slide, please. So same list, right? But we went on to ask them how well they feel City College is performing in each of those dimensions, right? So not how important is it or how much of a priority is it, but how well do they think City College is doing in each one of these areas. And you can see here that overall you get really good marks. The top of the list, and by the way, to allow for comparability here, the bar chart is of those who had an opinion, right? The brackets next to the labels there tell you the percentage that had an opinion. So at the top of the list, for example, having a beautiful and safe campus, 84% of respondents had an opinion about that. And then the percentages and the bars off to the right are among those who had an opinion. And what you see here at the top of the list, highest ratings for having a beautiful and safe campus, preparing students to transfer to a four-year university, providing a welcoming climate for all students, regardless of race, ethnicity, and sexual, and on down. It is worth noting that two of the standards that were in the top four on the last slide, right, meaning they were at the top of the list of what your residents would like to see from City College, two of those make the top of the list here in terms of how well they view your performance, right? So preparing students to transfer to a four-year university and providing a challenging, high-quality education. Those are things that were at the top of the list of what they cared about, and they're seeing you as performing particularly well in those areas. At the other end of the scale, though, there is one at the bottom there that was also near the top of the list in terms of what they would like to see as a standard, which is teaching students real-world skills they need to succeed in today's careers. And what we're seeing here is that's coming in kind of towards the bottom of the list in terms of perceived performance. So this could be really a communication issue, right? Just kind of helping the community understand what you are doing in this particular area as opposed to an actual performance issue, but it's worth pointing out. And next slide, please. And this is my last slide. I mentioned that it was the survey was an opportunity to dig into some of the issues that were of interest to the design team. And so because these issues varied quite a bit, what we decided to do was put them in an agree, disagree format. And so the way it worked was for each of the statements that you see on the left there, sometimes in truncated form, we simply asked individuals the level to which they agreed or disagreed with the statement. And so at the top of the list, Santa Barbara City College has a positive impact on our community. 85% of respondents agreed with that statement. You also had about 2/3 of respondents agreeing with the next three statements, that they'd like the college to offer a wider range of certificated classes for those not pursuing transfer to a four-year institution, that City College is a well-run institution, and they'd like City College to offer a wider range of degree programs, including transfer programs. You can see that there's also a lot of gray area off to the right. So what it tended to be is they either agreed with that statement or they were unsure, didn't have an opinion. There was a pretty small percentage who said they disagreed. As you get to the bottom three statements, you tend to see sort of a different pattern here. And these are three statements that were sort of phrased in the negative. There are too many students attending City College who don't live in Santa Barbara, right? You had about a little less than 1/3 of folks who agreed with that. But you also had about 1/4 of folks who disagreed with that, and most people didn't have an opinion. There are too many international students at City College. Here you've got a little more than 1/4, right, that agreed, but you had a bigger percentage who disagreed. And then here again, the largest single group was the no opinion. And then finally, we had a statement that said there's a lot of racial and ethnic tension at City College. You can see there that only about 14% of people agreed with that. You had over 1/3 who disagreed and more than half who said they just didn't have an opinion. So that's a quick run through some of the highlights of the survey results. Again, more detail in the full report, a lot more detail in the full report. And I'm here to answer any questions if there are any.
I have a question, kind of a general question. In addition to what you've told us and you highlighted some things you thought were significant, is there anything in the survey that really stood out to you as compared to surveys you've done for other community colleges that, like, wow, this is really different than you've seen before?
I think the level of familiarity with City College is the most striking thing, right? Again, we did not tip our hand when inviting people to take the survey, so we weren't just picking up people who, had some familiarity with you, saw a letter that had your logo on it and answered an email or a call. We were careful not to tip our hand, and 99% of folks that heard of you, 89% could name you without prompting, and you had higher degree of familiarity than UCSB, right? Or higher degree of unaided recall. That's striking for a community college. usually community colleges don't stack up against universities when it comes to sort of name recognition and unaided recall. So, you know, that tells you what how embedded in the community the institution is. And the fact that having high awareness also in large part transferred into having a high degree of familiarity with the city college. It wasn't just like, oh, I've heard of you, but by the way, I don't know much about you. Only 12% of respondents had heard of you, but didn't have an opinion one way or the other. So I think those two things were the most striking.
Did you see negatives in the survey that you would like to know more about?
Not really. When we looked at the negatives, in the report itself, when you dig into it, you can see that when you ask what are the positive impressions that come to mind, it's a long list, right? The negatives was a much shorter list. Most people couldn't come up with a negative. The one that kind of surprised me, I will say, that's a little odd for a community college, was the reference to being a party school, right? And you don't usually see the party school reference for a community college, right? That's usually something you hear about in terms of universities. But that was also a little an odd one. And then the other thing that I pointed out in the presentation, but it's worth mentioning in response to your question, that one item that was sort of toward the bottom of the list of what when we asked respondents, how well you're performing, the one item that was at the bottom of the list was teaching students real world skills they need to succeed in today's careers. They care, the community cares a lot about that. The fact that that landed at the bottom in that list, I don't think that's a reflection of what you're doing. It's probably more a reflection of what you're communicating about or not communicating about, right? And so that's an opportunity area, I think, for the future.
Haslund, question.
Public opinion poll is that, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. The reality of any poll is that it's valid for the moment that it's taken. Since that time, we have had the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
The question is obvious. What can you tell us about its likely validity today?
So, it's a great question. If we were doing, the short answer is I actually think, we can take a look at the answers and go, well, we might see a little more of a trigger here and more of a trigger there. But the nature of your survey is one that I think is going to be a lot more stable in terms of, how much the survey results would continue to map today after the crisis. If you were doing, for example, election-related research right now about a potential ballot measure, and we had done this prior to, the COVID pandemic and the economy and job losses and all that, I'd say I don't know how much applicability you'd have, right? You'd ultimately want to come back and track on the backside of this because there's a lot of potential for that to move, right? And so what we tend to find is, are the events that have just transpired, to what extent are they related to the nature of the questions we were asking? And I think there's a little bit less of there's certainly less connection between these two for your study than there would be for some other types of studies. Now, interestingly enough, we also do a similar study like this for Sacramento State University, and they have the advantage of having several baselines or prior tracking studies. We've done this over time with them. They're about to go out with theirs again in April. So I'll actually get some insight because we did their last study last year, and now we're going to be right on the heels of this, or in the middle of it, depending on what the time frame is, and we'll be able to see, how much this really impacts what the results are for that institution. And if something changes a lot, I'll make sure to circle back and tell you that, give you an update in terms of how sort of resilient the results were.
No, I think that'd be very helpful. Obviously our intent here is to measure and gauge the extent to which we believe that the community would vote in favor of a bond measure. And so that's the connection that we're seeking to
Well, I think your foundation is good, right? We didn't ask a bond measure question in this. And that if we did, that's the one I would say, all right, we would want to come back and track before you voted to put it on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
In fact, we have a number of educational institutions that we have done bond related research for, or we're preparing to do so in March. And we froze those studies for now because with everything that's going on, there's so much uncertainty out there. The one thing you know about voters is they're pretty good at adjusting to new conditions if they know what those conditions are. What is really unsettling for voters is uncertainty, right? If they don't know where we're at, they don't know what COVID's trajectory is, they don't know where the economy is going to be, and the ground seems to shift beneath their feet every day, that's where they find the most unnerving, right? So I think as we get a little deeper into this and we start, things are going to start to settle out into whatever the new normal is, that's the time to come back and poll with, for a client that is thinking about a bond measure.
Thanks.
Yep.
You're up next. You have a question, comment?
You talking to me?
Yes.
Sorry, that got cut out. Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to say I thought the presentation was great and the survey was really, really helpful. Sort of tagging along with what Trustee Haslam was just saying. I mean, we were thinking of this as a precursor to asking a bond measure question, a ballot measure question. Personally, I think that's totally out the window for the fall at this point because I just don't know what a new normal would be before we would have to make a decision in July for whether or not this was going to go on to a ballot, and then trying to campaign when you can't go door to door. Maybe we could, maybe we couldn't. I just think that this has turned out to maybe really not be the year for it. Nevertheless, I think that this provides us with so much information about what we need to be doing to connect with the community, the areas that maybe we are not messaging well enough, the stories that we need to be sharing with our community. Obviously, there's a lot of good news there, just in terms of the community connection with it. But there's work to do, and so I think that this was tremendously helpful, and will help us for whenever we are ready to go out, as we continue to just really enmesh ourselves more in the community, especially at a time like this. I would love it for the community to see what we are doing with our students and how it's affecting the impact that it's having on the greater Santa Barbara community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands raised. I would concur with Trustee Parker's comments as well. I think it's very, very helpful for us going forward. And we obviously face making a decision about the bond measure in uncertain times with uncertain information. But that's where we are. Still don't see any others, so we'll move on to our next agenda item. Thank you very much for.
Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Okay. Our next item is 7.2, Architect's Quarterly Report on Physical Education Placement Building Project. And I believe Steve Flanagan is here to meet with us. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you and good evening, President Miller and members of the board. It's my pleasure to share with you the Physical Education Building Replacement Project update. Our last update was in February when we all lived in a slightly different world. If we could go ahead and bring up our presentation, and then I think like the previous presentation, somebody else will have to advance those. And so there's the beautiful campus. Next slide, please. So since our last presentation in February, we've been very busy finalizing programming, planning, and delivering the schematic design. And so you can see that we recently completed the schematic design. The project has been submitted to the Chancellor's Office and the Department of Finance for funding. LPA is currently developing the preliminary plans with a target to submit to DSA in October. If everything goes according to plan and the schedule, we'll be out the bid in June of 2021. Start of construction in the summer of 2021, and then hopefully be complete by December of 2023. And then, of course, today, our board meeting in the yellow there, April 9th, a snapshot in time. Very unusual time. Next slide, please. And we have been able to hit our target project program budget. So really that was our task from the very beginning to meet this budget, which was defined in the FPP as a square footage that we have to meet as far as the ASF and the GSF. So the ASF is the assignable square footage, the programmable spaces inside the building. So the state funded 52,605 assignable square feet. There was actually a little bit more square footage in the existing PE building due to just some changes over time. And our new proposed gym is at 52,410 square feet. Again, that's a programmable space. In addition to that is the gross square footage, which is space like stairs, elevators, restrooms, mechanical, electrical rooms. And so that had a target of 77,849. And we're within 1% of that, which is what we're required to do at 77,187,000 square feet. So next slide, please. So just bring everybody up to speed. You can see we have our existing site, the physical education complex. We're located between the stadium, Lot 2C, Loma Alta Drive, the pedestrian bridge to the west that connects the east and west campus, and of course the upper east campus. Next slide, please. So we have continued to move forward from the very first presentation we had with utilizing the existing gym and Life Fitness Center. That's going to help save some money. It's a cost saving strategy to maintain the use of the existing gymnasium, the Life Fitness Center, and the 4 classroom buildings during construction, as well as the gym. And then we'll demo the rest of the PE complex, which has the existing offices, locker rooms, and classrooms, and start construction, as you can see highlighted in yellow. Next slide, please. So also part of this first phase, we will provide and make ready new interim housing by utilizing existing portables already in place on campus and by placing new portables west of the pedestrian bridge. This will allow the PE and athletic programs to operate uninterrupted during the construction phase. And you can see our construction zone there highlighted in yellow. So we should be able to operate effectively and efficiently while that's going on, but we will have to make some changes in accessibility and power and utility services to the existing gym in order to make that happen. So next slide, please. But the good news is that's gonna save us some money. Once construction of the new PE building is complete, which you can see in the bright yellow color, we will demo the existing gymnasium, Life Fitness Center, and the 4 classrooms, as well as the 3 existing portable structures next to the existing gym, so that we can construct new open space and campus access stairs. The total site improvement is approximately 3.7 acres or 161,000 square feet roughly. And that's the green area that you see outside of the physical education complex building. Next slide, please. So here's the site plan. It delineates the project. Once complete, the site includes a functional grass area of approximately half an acre or 22 or 23,000 square feet. The red arrow demonstrates a pedestrian and cart access through the building at ground level, connecting the locker rooms, equipment, and training rooms with the track and field and to the multi-purpose functional grass areas. So very efficient. That part in between the yellow blocks will be under a roofed area. So it makes it very convenient to access all the functions that are on the ground level. The blue star denotes the building's main entry and is clearly visible from the parking lot 2C. The purple star denotes access to 4 multidisciplinary classrooms that are located on the 4th level at the upper campus level, and the secondary PE entry from the upper campus as well. It wasn't easy, but we believe we've maximized the programmatic efficiency both vertically and horizontally within this 4-story structure, which you can see takes up about half as much of a footprint space as the original PE complex. So at the last presentation, next slide, we were asked at the last board meeting for this exhibit, which is showing stormwater surge and flooding. This is a composite diagram that superimposes our new design on these maps. And the red dark outline that you see there is really a composite limit line that shows the intrusive points relative to beach erosion, ocean storm surge, flooding maps, and then of course the placement of our new building. So you can see that the building maintains outside of that area. But we're also designing the building so that the first floor is constructed out of cast in place concrete. This will help protect the building from any abnormal or extraordinary storm surge or flooding surge, so that the building will not be structurally damaged, at least, or minimally compromised during any dramatic storm or flood effect. You can also see there from those yellow lines that from the new open space that pedestrians will have views to the ocean. There were some comments, maybe from the public, maybe from the board at the last meeting, that this area perhaps might be considered closer to the stadium to maintain views, but we believe there will be lots of views from this area that the public can use, as well as be programmed by the college. So next slide, please. So this is a slide that's fairly new to most people. It's a perspective, a rendering view of the PE replacement building once complete. The view is of the main entry where the focal point is the grand entry stair that leads to the lobby of the gymnasium that's located on the 2nd floor. So we're very excited about this. It clearly denotes a front door, which is something that the existing physical education building is somewhat lacking. It provides amazing opportunities for views and daylights into the fitness center, which is that sort of blue vertical white stripe area to the left, as well as to the dance and exercise room up above that via covered outdoor walkway. So next slide, please. This slide is a perspective rendering of the west side of the building. So this is the area where the flat grass area is located, and where and next to Loma Alta Drive. The west facade is fairly solid. This is a good thing for energy efficiency. It reduces the heat gain exposure from the setting summer sun. Although more solid on this side, we know this will be activated by students and activity, both utilizing the flat grass area as well as going up and down the stairs that you can see to the left there. So this will be a primary entry into the Upper East Campus. Next slide, please. This is a view from the upper campus, just south of the campus store. From this perspective, it looks like a 1-story building and provides quick access to students accessing the 4 multidisciplinary classrooms on the Upper East Campus. These classrooms were in the original classroom buildings, but perhaps maybe harder to find for first-time students trying to find the classroom. So we've moved these up to the 4th floor. One of the benefits of this is it helps block the view of the large gymnasium box that is just behind it. Then you see that glass area on the left. That's a lobby into the elevator and stairs that provides access to the rest of the PE replacement building complex. So next slide, please. So the last meeting we talked about budget, and now that we have designed the floor plans and have the basic look and feel of the building, we've had 2 cost estimators provide cost estimates for us. One of them is LPA's consultant, Cumming, and the other one is the district's construction manager, Lundgren. So they provided estimates which are anywhere between $15 and $20 million above the state construction budget allocation of $34.7 million. So that's a total allocation for construction only. It's not the total project budget, but that's basically where we are today. The state has is responsible for paying 80% of that $34.7 million, or $27.8 million is responsibility of the state. And then the district is responsible for 20% of that $6.9 million. I know we were talking about bonds previously, and that would go to help pay the district's portion of that. If the project increases above the 34.7, that would be the responsibility of the district to pay. The state's not going to pay any more, regardless of how low or how high it ultimately bids out. One of the big things that is challenging for us is our cost estimators really began and really completed their estimates before the the entire COVID-19 and this pandemic broke out. So it's going to be interesting to understand how that will affect construction bids as well as escalation. Some people think escalation will be flat for the next 2 years, but our last 3 bids at LPA for our projects, which have happened during the last 2 weeks, have been anywhere from 10 to 15% below the estimated cost of construction. So although some people think it might not have any effect as far as increased bids, we're currently seeing, at least right now, that bids are coming in lower. So in addition to that cost, there would be additional costs for swing space from anywhere from $700K to $1.5 million, and the existing gym to make that ready, as well as portable modifications, $1.5 to $2.5 million. Now, we believe that's a big cost savings over providing interim gymnasium, since we're saving the gymnasium and using it during construction. So that would have been a much higher number. And we will continue to estimate this project as we get more details. One more coming in June, both from Cumming and Lundgren, where we will rectify those bids and try to figure out where they are and make value engineering decisions. However, we can't reduce the assignable square footage or the gross square footage. So next slide, please. So with that, I want to open it up to any questions you might have. I'm sure you have lots of questions, and we're happy to answer. Also with me is Steve Key, the project manager. He's on the line, so we'll be happy to answer any questions. We've identified ourselves in red tonight.
Robert, we don't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Trustee Croninger has a question or comment.
Hi, thank you for the update and presentation. I actually have 3 questions. And thank you also for including that information on the ocean level rise predictions.
Our pleasure.
I'll save that question for last. My first question is do we have Chancellor's Office approval yet on the changes that we've made to reduce the swing space costs and the things that you have come up with? Because it sounds to me also like we're doing a taller building as well than the one we have, but I'm not quite sure about that.
This is Lindsay. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, great. I did just receive information today. I don't have the official letter yet because our facilities specialist is out of the office, but I did receive information that our preliminary plans have been approved by both the Chancellor's Office previously and just recently by the Department of Finance. So yes, that has gone through.
That's good. Okay.
So on answering the 4-story, the state funding was predicated on a 4-story building, even though the current building isn't really as tall as that. But that was part of the funding approval criteria.
Okay, so all of that is basically approved, which is good news.
Yes.
Next question, the costs are daunting. You've got two estimators. Did the range here, was that from both estimators, or was one lower and the other higher?
Yes, one was lower and the other one was higher. So Lundgren, who is the construction manager, was the higher one. Maybe that's because they're a little bit more familiar with the building in Santa Barbara and the premium that might come with that. And some of it is just if we got together and sat down with both of those, we would probably find some middle point for them to come to terms with, and we will do that on estimates that come in other phases as we get closer to bid, because we want to really know exactly where we think we're going to come. The bid, it could be dramatically different by the time we do this in June with some of the things that we know, and as those estimators and construction managers see costs come in, they'll start to change their bids and their numbers. Some numbers might go up, some numbers might go down. But one of the things we're seeing as far as the cost estimate is nothing out of the ordinary as an incremental cost. If we look at square footages cost for the building or for the site development and building demolition, there's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just a very large project.
Correct, and I'm appreciating that these are your first set of estimates and so forth. What's concerning me is just that we have maybe 8 million to set aside toward this project, and the numbers you have here are 17.2 to 24 million for our contribution, and we're under considerable strain from recent events as well. And also I would be interested in having not only these estimates, but the estimates for the furnishing of the building, the equipment it needs, and the furnishings to operate, the parking expense, if any, and the landscaping, all of which are local costs as well. So as we move through the estimating, those are things that are still not included.
Okay.
And so, you know, we will be looking for how to stretch $8 million into this. The other thing is going to the ocean and storm surge. I don't know if you can put that one up again, but I was wondering the scale, how close is that yellow line to the building, and where's Loma Alta? Is it underwater in that? I mean, it was obvious our field was, our playing field.
Yeah, that was a composite exhibit or diagram that was showing all the worst case scenarios happening at once, storm surge and flooding. Yeah, so you can see there, the yellow line is actually the view lines from the field. Yeah, the red line is really the dangerous line. So you can see it starts to go up Loma Alta and covers the field, obviously. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with some of these colors when it does flood. And then, of course, the purple there is your long-term shore erosion, but that's something the city is going to have to always deal with. So that's probably less of a concern to our project and your campus than the other ones, the flooding and storm surge.
Okay, and shoreline is a little hard to see there, but I guess it's part purple, part green.
Oh, I don't have a mouse to point out where that that shoreline. You can see the shoreline drive at the top, and it kind of comes down and swoops around where that dark blue area is.
Okay. So what's the scale between the edge of the red line and the building? Roughly.
Between the red line and the building?
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably 20 or 30 feet from the building. Now the building is up on a plinth. So the only thing we're really worried about is for accessibility, we're bringing an elevator down to the sort of the parking level, or almost at the parking level. It's a little bit higher. So when you get a serious flood, the elevator pit will probably flood. So there's things we can do from an architectural standpoint to minimize or mitigate any damage that happens from that with pumps and drains. And and things of that nature. So the building itself is up on a little plinth. If you go to the next slide, you can see in that front view of the building what I'm talking about. So who's ever operating the PowerPoint, if they're, yeah, so there you can see the stairs that take you up to the second level, and even over to the left where you see the person on the bicycle, they're down at parking lot level. And then you can see there's a rise of about 4 or 5 feet up to really the first floor of the building. So that the red line is really coming basically, well, with this new design, it'll come right up to the bottom of those stairs. And then if it's really bad, it might come all the way up to the top of that first run of stairs there, but not up to the really the second floor at all. You can see the walls and the retaining there that are purposely designed to mitigate any problems we would incur from storm surge or flooding.
So you're including in the cost estimate provision for pumping water out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what time frame in years does that diagram represent? 20 years, 30 years, 40 years?
I don't know, Steve Key, if you know exactly what that is, or if that's what their assumption of worst case scenario.
If I could figure out how to, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on, this is from the draft, you can download the entire report from the city of Santa Barbara. And this is all assuming a 6.6 foot sea level rise or tidal influence, induation just over time. It doesn't particularly say, you know, it's going to happen in, 5 years or something. It just says that based on where the site is located, that over time it would potentially have this type of tidal rise. The blue area on that is actually storm surge. And even now, the current storm that we're having is probably flooding that parking lot. It's actually designed lower. Steve actually said 4 or 5 feet. It's actually more like 8 feet from the first floor before you get to the building. So we're pretty high up, but we're above that 6.6 foot number.
Okay. Trustee Parker, do you have a question?
Yes, I think more comments, I would say. First of all, I wanted to say, LPA, great job on the design. I mean, that is really a beautiful building. I think that we would all be thrilled to have that to replace what we have.
Thank you.
So kind of segueing from our last presentation, as we were talking about the reality of us not being able to go out for a bond this fall, I appreciate your clarification on the amounts from the state versus the amount that we were originally projected. We had a conversation back in April of 2019 talking about cost estimates and what we might get for the state and how we should structure our request in our application. Obviously we don't have this money, the 15 to 20 million plus, extra costs for portables and modifications and swing space. And so I'm like Trustee Croninger, I'm concerned about that, and would want to know about, so a question I have is about reducing the costs. So what would we need to do to reduce the cost if we have to? And then on the flip side of it, what are the ways that we could raise the money if we could? And obviously there are probably other types of bonds or other types of funding that we could look at. We haven't talked about naming this building. And I know that our board policies allow us to work with the foundation on fundraising for this type of project, but we haven't talked about that. And so those are issues on my mind, and perhaps right now you could talk about what we would need to do to lower the cost if it came down to that.
Like we mentioned earlier, we have to maintain the square footage. So that's usually the best way to reduce cost on a project, especially significant cost, is to build less space, whether that's building space, outdoor space. So that is going to be challenging for us. Obviously, we can look at reducing anything that will reduce building materials or reduce expensive building materials, which we haven't really got into too much. But we'll continue to do that. There's a lot of cost into areas you don't see, such as soil stabilization and footings. And so we're going to look to do what we can there to be creative and do and not spend as much money underground, because who wants to spend money on stuff you can't see? And so we'll team with our engineers, as we have already been doing. But some of the soil requirements are just coming to the forefront now as this project gets started. And so there's a lot to be learned there, and there's a lot of unknowns. So the cost estimators are putting in contingencies to make sure that we got enough money to cover that. So as we learn more, we'll definitely make decisions on the value side. I totally respect your perspective, not only of building this building, but being able to maintain it once it is built. So we're trying to make smart decisions as it relates to sustainability and to function. Building the building out of materials that will be here for over 50 years, especially since it's a high impact use building, locker rooms, gymnasiums, high impact. So building out of sturdy and durable materials. One of our strategy is to build out of materials that don't require finishes on the inside or outside, such as the ground floor being out of cast in place concrete. It's primarily the locker rooms, equipment room, and training room, so that those that concrete can be exposed on the inside and the outside, so that you don't have an additional layer of finishes that provide additional expense. So we'll do everything we can, because we want to see this building get built, and we want to help you guys be successful in meeting your budget goals.
Trustee Gardo, you have a question or a comment?
Thank you, Steve. It's very pretty. The building's really nice. I like it.
Thank you.
So thank you. And I called over my lacrosse player son, and so he peeked at it and he was like, "Oh, that's really nice." And just the whole pathway from the grass coming down the Malta into the field, it's all really nice. I'm wondering, and I'm excited. I mean, when fall 2023, that when I became excited about this project, thinking of all these boys that I've seen since they were 5 years old. And so they're all graduating in 2023 from high school. And so they're all Santa Barbara High lacrosse players right now. And so just to see them see these projects and, for the last couple of years and keep having them give me feedback is pretty awesome, because these are your future SBCC kids. Lindsay, with, just with what Kate was mentioning and Marcia and everybody's, is mindful of cost right now. Given everything, I mean, don't you think the state will be, would be able to work with us with timeframes and things? I mean, everything's changed and people are moving, postponing. So I do, as much as there is a lot of uncertainty, I am hopeful that this is a good thing, both in contracts, maybe bids coming in a little lower, and that the state's going to really work with us, because they've been working with everybody right now, because we have to. It's a unique world emergency we see ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for exactly what the state's going to do, but we'll definitely be asking them to work with us as we go through this project if we have hiccups along the way. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't see why they wouldn't, but I don't know. I haven't heard any comments about that yet from the state. They're really busy focusing on the coronavirus issues that they're tackling at the chance.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hopeful that they'll, issue waivers where we need them, or I don't know, that we don't have to just return money, because we did that once already.
Yes, our goal would not to be doing that again, and we'll continue to work through a way that doesn't take place.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll come up with options.
It's a beautiful building, so, and thank you.
Steve, before we conclude, I'll concur that it is a great design in so many different ways. So thank you to you and your colleagues for coming up with this design. The numbers are challenging, very challenging. So we have a lot to look at, a lot to think about, and we're going to have to be creative to get this project done. But Thank you for your presentation.
Agreed. Well, thank you for the kind words. And we have a really great team that we're working with there at Santa Barbara College. So we're really kind of disappointed that we have to stay at home and we don't get to go to Santa Barbara every 2 weeks. My daughter was disappointed I wasn't going to be there tonight to take her out to dinner. So we look forward to getting back to normal and to finishing this project and someday standing on one of those upper decks and really admiring how great Santa Barbara City College is with this new addition.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item 7.3, update on the 2019-20 budget.
Yes, Trustee Miller, James is going to take us through this. And while he's making a presentation, I'm going to step out for a minute and bring something back.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Just a little technical check.
Yes. You're good to go.
All right, Clyde, do you want to pull up the budget update PDF? Perfect. All right, so this file is essentially the same format we've used the last couple months. Looking at our budget update, it's got 3 years of our actual history and 2 years, or our adopted budget, our adjusted budget, and then our best projection as of when we did this, which was around the first of the month, for where we're going to end this current fiscal year. So you can see here, our updated deficit for this year is about $3.8 million. The primary changes from last month, we have reduced our international and out-of-state income expectations. We're anticipating that we will receive less money in summer one than we had originally projected due to the coronavirus. We've also updated our expenditure projections, taking a look at things. An unfortunate benefit of the situation with us going off-site is a lot of activities that were planned, such as field trips or athletic events, etc., are not going to be taking place, and so we won't be spending the money related to that. So there's some offsetting expenditure reductions in that area. So a couple things that are not included right now that I think are worth mentioning. The largest is we're expecting to receive somewhere in the neighborhood of about $5.8 million from the CARES Act. Which was the Federal Stimulus Act. That is something that's coming in. About $2.9 million of that is restricted for grants directly to students. And then the rest of it, we're not quite sure what the restrictions are going to be yet. Guidance is continuing to be something we're waiting for. I'm not sure if that's going to hit our unrestricted general fund or be in a restricted fund. So for now, that's not really included, but that is something that's out there. And as we get more information, we will bring you up to date on that. And I think that is what I had on this. Does anybody have any questions on this document?
See any, James?
Yes?
No,
Was
I
that
don't
sorry?
see any. You can go ahead and see any at this point.
Okay.
Is that it? Oh, you got the
That,
assumption.
yeah, that is it with this. These are just the assumptions. I basically walked through already kind of what the main changes were from our last month. So I think if you guys are ready, we could jump right into the second agenda item.
Well, hold on a minute.
Oh.
Trustee Croninger has a question, I believe.
And Trustee Parker. My question is, I'm not now looking at your first slide, but I think that there's a difference in revenue there of 2.5 million less. So are you saying that's because of the summer expectations for international out of state?
Not all of that would be. So you're looking at 2.5 million less than what's in the adjusted budget.
Yes.
So large, that is not just the summer international reduction. That is also the overall international reduction we've talked about in previous months. We haven't adjusted the budget yet. That should be coming shortly. We've been waiting to get a little bit of little more information, but we're going to be working on adjusting that budget to be more in line with what we're expecting. But that is including both our international adjustment from and out-of-state adjustment from the rest of the year, as well as the reduction in the summer. But the big change from last month is really just the reduction in our summer expectations.
Okay, so I'm looking at adjusted budget, and that's not last month.
No, that is not the same number that we had last month in the projection column.
Okay, so I'm not actually able to subtract that without going back. So your difference this time is what?
Give me a second here. It's the summer reduction is, pulling it up on my other computer here. About $300,000.
Okay. And you're also in that we had a reduction of, I don't know, 900,000 in the faculty salaries from adjusted budget to now.
So
what does that represent?
a lot of that is in the fact that we're anticipating at this point a smaller summer session. So we budgeted less summer salaries. So if we end up with a larger summer session, that would kind of move back up. You know, we're kind of in a wait and see mode.
Aren't we looking at the projections for end of year? So you're talking about first summer one is small, and that's what the difference is?
That is a good chunk of the difference. And then the rest of it is other savings coming throughout the rest of the year. There's areas where we had faculty retire mid-year that reduces our from what was in the budget. Other situations similar to that.
Okay, so whatever adjustments you're making related to summer only go for summer one, and then summer two gets wrapped into the next budget.
Correct.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay, Trustee Parker.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask briefly if you're hearing anything about any budget timeline changes coming from either the state or the chancellor's office, given the uncertainty of what is going on and sort of where everybody's attention's at.
So in terms of budget timeline changes, no. We're still at this point being told to anticipate needing a tentative budget by the end of June, and then our adopted budget would need to still be adopted by September 15th. We do know that the state is anticipating a significant May revise. They're going to what they're calling a workload budget, which is basically just the basics, and then they're anticipating a August revise as well. One of the things that we've been told is that because the tax deadline has been delayed, knowing what tax receipts are coming in, they won't really know those until June or July, which is going to push out their revenue projections until probably August.
But they will adopt a budget for June 30th?
Yes, at least as far as I understand. Now things are changing regularly, so we'll see what comes down the pipeline. But as I know right now, they're still anticipating adopting a budget, but it's going to be very different than what was the January proposal. So we're waiting to see what that looks like in May.
Yes, I can add from the discussions at the CEO level, CEO group, that we pretty much agree that the January proposal that the governor put forward in terms of the budget, that is pretty much out of the window. That there will be a new set of budget pronouncements from the governor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for James? We'll move on to item 7.4, the 2020-21 budget scenarios. Dr. Goswami, are you discuss those or those?
Yes, I will tee it off, and then James can go through the details. So what we have in front of you is, we just made up 3 scenarios, and literally we just made up 3 scenarios. And the intent here is to not necessarily argue that scenario A is better than scenario B, or scenario B is more likely than scenario C, or whatever, but more than anything to give you a sense of what are some of the major variables that's going to affect our budget, and what are the likely impact of each of those variables are going to be in the budget. So that's why in terms of the assumptions, as you can see in the scenario A, B, and C, so a big variable is going to be the COLA. The another big variable is going to be the resident FTES, dual enrollment to a certain extent, non-credit FTEs to a certain extent, but then out-of-state tuition and international tuition. So those are some of the big variables in terms of a revenue picture. And as we go through the scenarios, if nothing at all, what I want board to kind of take from it is that for every 1% in FTES, we are looking at about $150,000, $145,000 change. Similarly, for every 10% of out-of-state tuition, we are looking at about $400,000 impact. For every 10% of international students, we are looking at an impact of about $750,000 for every 10%. So then in your mind, you can play around, if this changes by 8% and this changes by 20%, whatever the impact is. So I'm hoping that by end of June, we'll be able to bring to you the most likely scenario that might play out. And that's the point where we can now develop a tentative budget. So with this much of a background, James, you can take us through the document.
Dr. Goswami, before we go to James again, would you address the nearly $6 million that we are receiving via the CARE Act, and
yes,
and where that's reflected? I assume that will be reflected in this budget, not.
No, we just found out that actual number about 2 hours ago. So we actually don't have it built in here. So we can put that number anywhere, either in the reserves or in the revenues, either for this year or next year. So basically, for example, you can see the budget scenario B. That's in front of the screen. You can apply the $2.8 million to that under budget amount and make it 0. Or you can apply it to the revenues and make it 0. So there are various ways to apply that number. We don't know exactly how exactly we can use those dollars. So once we have more clarity, we will build it in. And depending on when we receive the money, it could be applied to either this year, and then we have a better fund balance this year, and then that carries us through the next year, or we might apply to next year's revenues.
And I take it the additional something like $3 million to be used for students, for grants to students.
Yes.
Is not something that would be reflected in the budget.
It is not reflected in the budget. So clearly, the financial aid budget is going to go up. And it's if if we can use the money with a little bit more discretion than what normally federal grants are, then I think we can also utilize those $2.8 million to actually help enrollment. So that's why we have to work through those considerations in the next couple of months, how best to utilize those $2.8 million.
So hopefully we can have a positive indirect impact
Yes.
on our budget.
Uh-huh.
Trustee Croninger, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was not clear, and maybe I heard it wrong when you were talking about the variable impact. I thought that you said a 10% change in out-of-state students was about 400,000.
Yes.
And a 10% change in international students was about 700,000. And I didn't understand why they would be different when we charge the same tuition and we actually have administrative expenses for international students that we don't have for out of state. Why are they different?
Well, the numbers are different. So 10% of international students would be 80 or 100 students, while 10% of out-of-state students would be 40 students.
Okay, so it's just the number of students that you're talking about.
Okay. And I guess we turn to you, James.
Okay, so this document set up, you can see the assumptions that played into the revenue pieces at the top of the summary page. I do want to make one quick correction to this. The scenario C, the decline in out of state is actually 70%. If you look at the detail, it says 70% and all the numbers are 70%. I just forgot to change it in that assumption right there. So just to make that correction real quick. But as Dr. Goswami was saying, these are kind of three different potential what if scenarios. It'll likely be some of this and some of that on all these different areas. It was just to try and give an idea of what if international changed by this, or what if out of state changed by that. But you can see our revenue areas in here are going from what is $98 million in this year and go in next fiscal year, depending on various scenarios, anywhere from 96.6 down to 91.3. So that is a significant reduction in our revenues based on these series of assumptions. The other thing is that we have made attempts to reduce expenditures as revenues have gone down as well. Those are just in a couple potential areas. Those are things that we would definitely need to work through our budget process and find out where exactly we would make those changes. These are just potential scenarios for where that might come from. So with each of these scenarios, you can see we have a deficit anywhere from $3.6 million to $7.7 million in next fiscal year. And you'll notice that the amount over or under the board designated reserve at the very bottom there puts us under the reserve in all three of these scenarios. And a large part of all of this is due to the coronavirus, we're anticipating very, very significant reductions in our international and out-of-state revenues. So I can't scroll that down for you.
Next slide.
Clyde, do you want to go to the next page there? So, okay. So the next two pages are basically how each scenario walks from what was the projection numbers. If you look at the numbers on the previous presentation, we used those as a starting point, and then we added or subtracted based on kind of all of these variables. So you can see how our total computational revenue at the top kind of starts, and then we add in the COLA assumption. We add back in the deficit factor from this fiscal year, because that wouldn't be something that stays year over year. We are then adjusting for the decline in resident FTES and Also, down in our other revenues, that's where you see the out-of-state or international tuition, and also removing the one-time recalculation revenue. And then down below, you can see the primary adjustments come in the salaries and benefits areas. The scenario A stuck very closely to what Dr. Goswami presented at the last board meeting, looking at about a $1.5 million reduction in salaries. We did break it down to say about $1.3 million coming out of both instructional and non-instructional and classified salaries, mostly due to the SERP and any other retirements or educational efficiencies we're able to achieve. Also, due to the decline in our out-of-state and international, we're assuming fewer sections based on them, those students no longer being on campus. So we put in a salary reduction specifically related to that as well. And then in the benefits area, that follows what is in the salaries area, with the exception of the health insurance and then the CalPERS and CalSTRS increases. Those are both kind of called out separately. And then all the other adjustments down below are relatively small compared to those expenditure adjustments.
And I'd like to point out that in the conference call I had with the CEOs this noon, was that CalPERS, because of the decline in their investment portfolio, is now talking about increasing the match by the contributions by employees in the couple of years in the futures. So we might be looking at the increase of the CalPERS rates in the next couple of years.
Okay. Let's see any hands raised. Does that conclude your comments, James, or anything else?
Yeah, that is what I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay. Not seeing any hands raised, we'll move on to the consent calendar, which today are items 9.1, 9.2, 10.1 and 10.2, and 11.1 and 11.2. Does any trustee wish to remove any item from the consent calendar? Not seeing any hands raised, I'll invite a motion to approve the consent calendar. Trustee Gallardo.
Move to approve items 9.1 through 11.2.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Trustee Gallardo, second by Trustee Hasland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no no's, the motion passes. Our next item is 12.1, balloting for 2020 election of candidates. I understand that Angie has sent out an email to us, but I don't think I didn't receive it until the meeting started. But do I understand we absolutely need to vote? Can we vote? Do we have to vote now, or can we wait till after the meeting to?
Yeah, you have to vote. You have to vote now because you have to approve the ballot.
Approve the ballot.
Yeah, the candidates, the final 9 selections.
What your email did was asked us to, each of us individually, to identify the 9 candidates
That you wanted, yes.
that we wanted. And
Yes,
then you would tally those to come to the candidates the board as a whole would be voting for, correct?
Right, so after you do your voting, then Z will tabulate all the votes, and then And then once he has the results, we can provide them to you. I also want to say that some of you may have voted a little early. You'll have to vote again. Those got deleted.
And
What do you-
Can we vote now?
Trustee Parker, you have a comment?
Yeah, Angie, what do you mean by early? Like we had to do it right now as opposed to 2
You
minutes
had
ago?
to do it. Yes, you had to do it while we were doing the agenda, not before.
So I guess we need to, I guess we need to take a few minutes to allow everybody to submit. Those.
Yes, we can take 5 minutes and
Yes.
Done.
Angie, did you get mine? Is mine in or was it not
Oh,
count?
well, Aziz getting these, so I'm
Oh.
gonna assume that he's getting them.
The TMI on, yes. Are we voting for 7 candidates or 9?
9.
9 candidates. Oh. Okay.
Jonathan, I did get yours.
Thank you, Z.
Trustee Parker, you still have a question or comment? No, okay.
I've just submitted mine. Can anyone tell me whether they were received?
It should be a, there
Z.
should have been a confirmation when you submitted them.
Yes,
It says-
yours was received.
It says thank you, so I guess that's good.
Z, can you tell us when they're all completed?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Let's see, I do believe I have everyone. Marcia, Veronica, Peter, Kate, Craig, and Jonathan.
Okay.
All right, I will be back with shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
So Robert, you want to go to the next item while we wait?
yes, item 12.2 is deals with board policy 2015 related to student trustees. And this has to do with the opportunity we have every year on or before. I'm not sure on or before, but we're timely. Last year we were too late to do anything. That if we wish to make any changes to the board policy concerning the role of the student trustee. And there is a draft revision that was included, provided for everyone. This would be our first reading. There it is. And this would be our first reading. So we're not taking action tonight. We would do so in a board meeting. Do you have any comments or questions? Trustee Gallardo.
Thank you, Robert. Oh, wait, I can't move it. Can you move the to the second page? Yes. I swiped it and then the alphabet came up for one of my students this morning. I'm like, wait, how did I do that? In the second bullet here where it says the student trustee shall be seated with the members of the board of trustees and shall be recognized, comma, including receiving all materials presented to the board members except those pertaining to an executive session. Is there a way that we can make that a little bit more clear? Sometimes the items that are going to pertain to closed session sometimes arrive to the president. I guess there's a timeline by which closed session items get prepared. And so how do we make it clear in the board policy so that it isn't in question and a board member thinks that maybe the student trustee should have had information, or the student trustee could be clear that he or she didn't have information. It's a little gray right now, because the president it could be some anticipated litigation. These things are complicated. And so I just want to make sure the board policy is clear in case something arrives to the president's office, and as he's coordinating with the board chair, and a student trustee doesn't feel like he or she was left out because
so may I?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Goswami.
So the phrase that says except those pertaining to any closed session, sometimes we don't know that something might pertain to closed session until we are well into the matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that language can be a little bit looser, except items that may or has the potential of, I'm just thinking about words that may pertain to closed session matters.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with playing something like that would protect the closed section items.
Yeah. So maybe we can loosen the language a little bit, make it more anticipatory.
Yes.
Trustee Abeshi, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thank you, President Miller. Thank you to the Board of Trustees. I think this is like an uncertain situation, and I just want to thank everyone for how they have handled the situation, starting from the Board of Trustees to all members of the President Cabinet and everyone in school. It's been awesome, and the amount of support that the students have received. I agree with everything on the board policy for the student trustee, but one thing that that I thought we changed the last time was the compensation the student trustee receives. I think I think one of the trustees raised to the attention of the board that the student trustee can receive full compensation. So I don't know if that's something the board is still considering giving to the student trustee, because that would be great.
So I can speak to that. This policy has gone back and forth between the trustees and the BPAP committee. And there was the BPAP, I'm not going to say they all agreed, but they didn't feel that a student trustee should get paid as much as a board of trustee member. And they felt that the 50% was a fair amount to pay. So this is actually coming back to you from BPAP. But I'm trying to also get it approved by May so that we're in compliance with this policy, which has taken almost a year to get it to this point.
Trustee Abood, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I think the student trustee does pretty much almost as much as we do in terms of attending meetings and reading the materials beforehand, and that's what we're compensated for, I think. And so I support him getting more equal compensation to us. And I'm wondering why BPAP thought that the student trustee is only 50% worth as a regular trustee.
Oh, I couldn't answer that for you. It was
Oh,
just something that was discussed.
Rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Trustee Gallardo?
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Abood. I support, and I think last time when we talked about this, I do support the student trustee. I keep wanting to swipe up. I do support the student trustee receiving the same full compensation. I think that the student trustee, and I think Peter put it right at one point, or he said it correctly, that while the primary obligation of the student trustee is to be a student, nonetheless, they choose to take on this role. And so the scope of the student trustee isn't as big as the trustees, but I don't think he or she should be penalized. And it's not that they do less, it's just that their scope isn't as big as ours. So a student trustee, I feel, participates fully within the scope that he or she's been allowed. And so to compensate them fully, I think would be appropriate. So I support Kenny bringing up that point and Jonathan's recommendation to compensate them.
Trustee Parker?
Yes, I agree with the previous speakers, and I would just suggest, I mean, I think the way this all works in the back and forth, that once it comes back to us for the final vote, we can make the final change to the language. And so I would suggest that we just go back to that line that's deleted there, and where it says, sorry,
On page 2.
Yeah, on page 2, that to the same extent as the, where it's crossed out, to put that back in, and then get rid of the equal to 50% of the. So it's
Yeah.
just to the same extent as the total monthly meeting compensation received by the regularly elected members of the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
We can bring a revised item, yes.
I would second that opinion. That's very good, Kate.
All right, I'll bring it back corrected.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Then we could vote to approve it and you don't have to come back in May.
No, you have to, no, I have to come back in May.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Parker, your hand is still raised. Is that from the last? Okay. Trustee Haslam. Trustee Haslam, I think you're muted.
Unmute. Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Just a bit of perspective. The student trustee for most of our history since the formation of the board in 1965 was not paid. It was strictly a voluntary position, whereas all members of the board were paid. It was about, I guess, 8 or 10 years ago when it was felt unfair not to compensate the student trustee. And the decision at that time was to compensate the trustee at the half rate, largely because the student trustee is not a community elected officials and therefore has no responsibility for the community in terms of participation and responding back to the community. Anyway, just background that of where we have been. I mean, I have no great feeling one way or the other. I do think that the student trustee should be recognized, should have a role to play, should be compensated, but I don't have any strong feelings about whether the student trustee should be compensated at the same rate as an elected member.
Yeah, I just want to note that, excuse me, the student trustee is elected and they actually have to face their constituents on a daily basis, including in class, and then relay those concerns to us. So I think they do the same amount of work of community engagement just with the constituency that we've given them to represent, which is almost as big as what we represent.
I hear your point.
I have something to say. I'm trying to figure out, I got this, the motion is on the policy is on my screen and I can't seem to, I pressed the chat button and raised my hand several times, but that didn't seem to work. So I'm going to interrupt so that I can say something here. The trustees really don't get paid. We get a small amount. I just look at it like sort of a stipend, but they call it being on the payroll. And it's a pretty small amount of money. And to divvy that up in that way, I don't think makes any sense. And this particular trustee, student trustee we have at this time, has definitely been putting in some work. and his opinions are appreciated. I don't see why he should be only entitled to 50% of the pittance that I'm paid. Therefore, that's why I feel this way.
Okay, I would also support the being treated the same as all trustees in terms of compensation. Trustee Croninger?
It just occurred to me, I mean, I'm supportive of the trustee being paid at the rate that we are paid through the payroll. But we also have certain aspects of our availability of health insurance. And I don't think any of us are thinking about that as part of what we're talking about here. We might want to clarify that.
I don't think that's allowed in ed code.
But that may be the case. I haven't looked. It just occurred to me that we keep talking about the basically $400 a month if you go to all the meetings. And we're not talking about the healthcare part of it.
What I'm requesting for is just the $400 per month, not the insurance for now.
Clyde, could you put up the second page?
So there is a comment from Patricia that we may have to change BP 2725 regarding board member compensation, because this probably derives from that also.
Yes, that's correct. I'll bring that back.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay. I think we then will move on to item 12.3.
Maybe we can go back to 12.1 on the election or of the 9 trustees.
Z, do you have that ready?
So he's probably not ready, so.
No, it's probably not ready. Go ahead.
Is Mike muted? Our problem?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We're waiting for Z?
Well, why don't you go ahead to the next item?
Okay. We'll move on to 12.3, approval of superintendent president's goals. And I believe this is an action item, and we reviewed the, I think there were 4 goals at our last regular meeting. But I understand you may have one to add, or you would like to add to them, Dr. Goswami?
I mean, I would suggest that from the discussions we have had in the past, the landscape has changed significantly. So I cannot see how I can have a goal for the next 6 months without something to do with, responding to the, and preparing the institution regarding the COVID emergency. So I'm suggesting that we add that as part of one of my goals also.
That seems to make sense. Trustee Gallardo.
I just wanted to make an motion to approve the superintendent president's goals with the amendment that Dr. Goswami just added as it relates to COVID-19.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Gallardo, a second by Trustee Nielsen. Is there any comment?
Yes. Dr. Goswami, what do you have in mind doing with your spare time? Not that you're going to have any.
Well, I'm having fun, so keep me occupied.
Well, that's good.
Staying occupied is better than not being occupied.
Your camera is out of focus, at least for me. I wonder if that's true for everybody.
No.
Not that you as a person are out of focus, just, okay.
Yeah, it's totally out of focus.
Okay, we have a motion second. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Hearing none, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is board retreat. I believe it's on here so that we could decide to,
Before you go to that one, can I give you the results?
sure.
Okay. So it looks like your 9 candidates are Andra Hoffman, Larry Kennedy, Pam Haynes, Adrian Gray, Marisa Perez, Lauren Steck, Susanna Lee, Barbara Jean Calhoun, and Barbara Dunseep. Those are your top 9.
Okay, thank you.
So I just need you to vote on that. I need you to vote on that.
Is it a roll call vote or a?
No. Just.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have to be roll call.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the selection of the 9 candidates as?
I so move.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Hearing a motion by Trustee Haslund, a second by Trustee Croninger. Is there any comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you.
So item 12.4, board retreat. Let me just say by way of background that we're obviously in a different situation now, not being able to have a real retreat. We have a regular meeting on June 11 and a study session on June 25. I suppose one idea would be to have a Zoom board retreat on June 25 or some other date. Any comments? Suggestions?
Is it too early to, I mean, I have a strong preference for an in-person retreat, and I don't know whether that's going to be possible this year, but I'd like not to rule it out until it is ruled out by the powers that be that we should stay clear.
Trustee Parker. You're muted.
I agree with Peter and would so much prefer to do it in person. I do want to let you know that I am out of town June 20th to 27th, maybe. So allegedly, hopefully.
Any other comments?
Yes,
Trustee Nielsen.
thank you. Whenever we schedule this, and it's a few months out, I think we should just schedule it, and then if we have to do it by Zoom, then so be it. But I think we should just schedule it out there somewhere. Maybe we have to put it off till August. Might be a good idea.
How about if we had Angie propose some dates to us in August and she could solicit. I suspect there'll be a number of conflicts in August, but maybe we can find a date that would work for everybody.
Or there may be no conflicts at all because we're all still at home.
Yeah, exactly. Chances are greater we won't have any conflicts this but I think that makes sense to put it off till August. And if it's clear we're not going to do it in August, I guess we could put it off again.
Either that or we go back to Zoom.
Or go back to Zoom, exactly.
I mean, you can think in terms of late July, early August.
Yeah, either one, late July, I think, or August.
And if things improve, we can conceptualize a kind of an in-person meeting where we maintain significant social distance.
Yes.
Robert, my only comment, sorry, I haven't raised hand, I'll put it down. And
Go
what
ahead.
Dr. Goswami was his comment to late July, and I guess my thought was to Dr. Goswami and or Pamela and Patricia, knowing that we don't know what fall's going to look like, and we don't usually have retreats that we can do anything on our own. It's usually heavily reliant on people providing and facilitating. And I'm just wondering how available people are going to be in August. It just doesn't seem like fair that they would.
It's a good question.
You know, I think if there's any operable word that comes to mind about any specific date or any specific action that we might take, it is the need for flexibility. We just have no idea what these next steps are going to look like, or what they will facilitate, or where they will point. So I have no objections to planning something in July or August, taking into account staff time. I think that's a variable under any circumstance. But let's also be ready to change whatever decision we make on the basis of need.
Yeah, I agree. I guess just pre-coronavirus, post-coronavirus, no pandemic, I would never really encourage a retreat in August, even if we weren't experiencing this pandemic.
Yeah.
Just busy.
Okay, so I guess we'll try to find a date and be prepared to be flexible. Item 12.5 is an item we're going to put off until the May meeting. This was a resolution originally drafted by Marcia, and I think we're not quite ready yet. Is that correct, Marcia?
Yes, that's correct. I was not expecting it this time around.
So item 12.6, board self-evaluation instrument. This is an action item. I believe the self-evaluation form has been available, and I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Haslam, second by trustee Nielsen to approve the self-evaluation form. Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Next is report from board members. Would someone like to start? Maybe we don't have any reports. this
None?
None.
I raised my hand. I'm gonna just go.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Veronica has her hand up.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I want to say thank you. When all this happened and school started closing, and I just want to send a huge grateful appreciation to the math faculty, specifically Peter Rojas and his team. As a high school parent, we didn't get any instruction. We had students in AP calculus, pre-calculus, and so just reaching out to them and the resources that the math faculty have shared that I was able to share with other moms, just websites, resources that they've used in their classroom was amazing. In addition to the SBCC YouTube physics, that was able to get courses online. And so I just thought it just was amazing at how just online SBCC already had all these great tools that our students at the high school. And so I was just texting all these moms. And then last night I did my first Pilates class through the Life Fitness. So super stoked and awesome about that because it was a really, really good class. And I started learning Pilates when I was at City College. And I just feel like Pilates at City College is to the caliber of these really nice Pilates studios that we have in town. And so when I saw that email, my daughter and I did the class. So I just want to say thank you because even just reading through the email threads and, just conversations, and I'm not there, but the collegiality and just the level of professionalism, even with you guys' messages and the coordination and how succinct your emails are. And when we were rolling out our Zoom to teach our students, I mean, I was relying a lot on our IT department to get everything going and seeing, and then everything that was online. So I just think that SBCC, even though you guys are all doing this in-house, or we're all doing it in-house, it's because all our stuff is public, the community has been able to use it. So that's huge. And I don't even think that that was like your intent, but I just want to say that a lot of students, I've been directing them and we're using the resources that SBCC has online. So thank you for everything.
Anybody else?
I have something I'd like to add.
Okay, Trustee Nelson.
Yeah, just I had a long conversation a couple days ago with someone that sits on a rural school board in Iowa. And, you know, all the stuff we're doing and the help we're giving to our high schools and what our schools and high school and elementary schools are doing in our area and pretty much throughout the state of California. But what we're doing seems to be even in excess of what's being done in a lot of parts of California. What I found out in Iowa is the population really doesn't have a shortage of hotspots to get internet access. In fact, that's a big thing there, and their internet service to hookups to homes in the small towns is just fantastic. It's really good. But when they close the schools, they just close the schools. Nothing, no assignments, no nothing. They just said, go home. And they just left it. And I asked her, what are other districts doing? And this is a high school, elementary school district. And she said, they just sent everybody home. That's it. Everybody's on their own. And I guess, I don't know, can you give me some answer? Are you going to graduate them? What are you going to do? Nothing. They just sent everybody home. No answer, no reply. I intend to follow up. But I'm just in awe of the kind of support that SBCC has been able to give to our local schools, and the help and the leadership that our staff and faculty have created and have done. And we didn't get to be number one because of the trustees or because of the presidents. We got to be number one because of the staff and the faculty, the people in the classrooms. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Trustee Ameshi. Trustee Ameshi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Goswami and his team. I think they've done like a marvelous job. And the Chromebook checkouts and the internet broadbands were so helpful to a lot of students. And also the food share. I'm just so glad and proud that I'm a student at SBCC. And just like a few months ago, I just realized that the next meeting will be my last meeting after a year and 6 months. So it's like a bitter, joyful moment right now. But yeah, but thank you to everyone. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
Trustee Haslam.
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Craig said a little while ago. I mean, we're a wonderful board of trustees, but that's not why we're named best college in the country. It has to do with the faculty. And I was really very grateful for Vice President Ralston's concerns about or expressions of support for the faculty that are working as hard as they are. And that if we can, just remember that we're human beings and we're dealing with human beings who are in our classrooms as our faculty and as the support staff. And when we have an opportunity to say thank you to any of them, we should just take that extra moment and remember that we're all we're in a tough spot. We're wrestling with stuff like this every day. And I don't know how you're spending your time, but stuff that was never managed to rise to the top is suddenly rising to the top. And I'm having to develop some sense of discipline in order to cope with whatever comes up during each day. But City College is never far from my mind. So anyway, I'm grateful for you all. I'm grateful that you're alive and well and safe, and that's cool.
Okay.
And last thing, Robert, I forgot. Thank you, Pamela, the dual enrollment office. You guys got everything online and the students can, one click, we can do the parent form just once. And then the student just clicks, it goes straight to SBCC, to the counselor. And so thank you, because that little online dual enrollment website form is awesome. So thank you, Melissa.
I just have one final comment. That is, I have a hard time believing that anybody is doing it any better. It's just amazing what has occurred with the administration, faculty, staff, and the implementation of online instruction. It's really hard to think that anybody could have done this any better, any faster.
Okay.
Okay, Craig, your hand is raised electronically.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you specifically, since this is a person's last meeting in their official capacity, to Patricia Stark for her outstanding service in the past, over almost 2 years, I think. Yeah, just from one trustee to you, thank you. Thank you very much.
I think Craig is speaking for all of us, Patricia.
People have been texting me throughout the meeting. It's your last meeting. How do you feel? My answer has been mixed emotions. I consider myself to be a total policy wonk. So your meetings are very long, but I've really enjoyed being able to be able to make my reports and to follow all this along and to share it back with my faculty groups. I've been very privileged to be in this situation, to be in this position, and it's just been an honor. I don't know how else to say that, but very mixed feelings. I won't miss the 8, 9 o'clock at night Thursdays. But
we had closed sessions after that sometimes.
I don't know how y'all do it, honestly, but lots of coffee.
Well,
yes,
that's a good segue into asking if anybody has a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Trustee Parker has her hand up.
Sorry, there is an agenda item before that, future agenda items. And I just wanted to have it on people's radar that we should consider talking about student-faculty relationships in a future board policy. So I'm not asking for that to come back immediately, but sometime in the near future for a board agenda item.
Good point.
Any other items for future board consideration?
No, but I second Kate's request to bring that back.
I have a question about how we're going to achieve the closed session via Zoom. Do we just hang on here?
What's going to happen is all of those who will not be participating in the closed session will exit the meeting.
Okay.
And I see that Joe Shoulder has joined us.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Can you please read the items you're going to be talking about in closed session?
Sure. We have item 1 is public employee discipline dismissal release, and item 2 is conference with legal counsel existing litigation.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other procedural matters I need to clean up before we vote on our motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So we will ask those who are not participating.
Robert.
In item 1.
Robert. I've created a breakout room that I can put all of the board members and Joe into that is outside of this session, so nobody else can hear or see what's going on, and you guys can carry on. And then
Yes.
After the meeting.
Yes, put us into the breakout room.
All right, opening the room now.
So you see invitation to join, you can just,
That's pretty awesome.